we've experienced throughout the decades, especially in financial services, is the number of different issues that are coming together.
XRP has done something that, honestly, a lot of people still don't fully understand the significance of. It recently clawed its way back into the global top 100 assets by market cap. And I don't mean the crypto top 100, which by now doesn't impress anyone anymore. I'm talking about the global assets list. That's the same chart where you see Apple, Microsoft, Saudi Aramco, Tesla, Berkshire Hathaway, BlackRock, all the massive giants that literally run the global economy. And now you've got XRP sitting right there among them, pushing into the number 99 spot with a market cap that's already north of $181 billion. Let that sink in. $181 billion. Sitting just above HDFC Bank, just under Citigroup. That's not just some small milestone. That's XRP rubbing shoulders with institutions that have been around for centuries. Names your grandparents know, names that built entire economies. XRP, a digital asset that was dismissed, ridiculed, dragged through court for years, is now competing on the same playing field. That's massive. And look, I don't think we're anywhere close to the end of what this cycle is going to do for XRP. If history tells us anything, these positions aren't static. Towards the tail end of the cycle, assets like XRP don't just sit in the 90s on that chart, they climb. I'm telling you, I wouldn't be surprised to see XRP break into the top 80, maybe even the top 70 by the time this cycle fully matures. Because as much as people want to doubt it, as much as skeptics want to drag it back down with old narratives, the reality is XRP is still grossly undervalued relative to the amount of utility, adoption, and real-world integration that's happening right now. And I don't say that lightly. I've been consistent on this point for years. I believe trillion-dollar market caps for utility-based projects are not some fantasy, not some moonboy dream, they're inevitable. Think about the sheer scale of tokenization that's coming. Just stop for a second and really think about it. The world's financial system isn't just dabbling in this stuff anymore. Banks, governments, asset managers, they're openly telling us what's about to happen. They're publishing papers, running pilots, building infrastructure. The IMF has entire sessions on digital currencies. The BIS talks about tokenization like it's a foregone conclusion. The Federal Reserve itself has acknowledged stablecoins as part of the future financial landscape. This isn't fringe. This isn't some underground experiment. This is mainstream finance preparing to rewire itself. And every single time we hear about stablecoin initiatives, about cross-border payment networks, about tokenized treasuries, about settlement layers, XRP's name is right there. Ripple's technology is right there. Stellar, Algorand, HBAR, yeah, they're all in the conversation too. But XRP has carved out a position that's unique. It's been tested in fire. It survived the longest and nastiest regulatory battle we've ever seen in this space. For years, the SEC hammered on Ripple, tried to brand XRP a security, tried to choke its liquidity, tried to scare exchanges into delisting it. And yet here we are in 2025, and XRP isn't just alive, it's thriving, making it into the top 100 global assets. That's resilience. That's staying power. Now, I know people are cautious right now. The market hasn't fully exploded yet. Bitcoin is still chopping, Ethereum is still waiting for its next leg, and everyone's asking the same question. Is this real or is it just another fake out? But you have to zoom out, because what we're seeing isn't just price action. It's infrastructure being laid for something way bigger. We're seeing the first steps of mass adoption, and XRP is right in the thick of it. Take the ETF developments, for example. Franklin Templeton's XRP and Solana ETFs. Those decisions were supposed to come sooner, but the SEC just pushed them back with a new deadline for November 14th. And the second that delay was announced, you could hear the groans from the community. People saying, here we go again, the SEC is suppressing XRP, they're playing games, they're trying to choke it out again. But I don't buy that. This isn't 2021 anymore. This isn't the SEC trying to bury Ripple under lawsuits. This is bureaucracy doing what bureaucracy does, slow-walking decisions, adding delays. And honestly, it's a good sign, because if they were never serious about considering these ETFs, they wouldn't even bother with the delay. They'd outright deny them, end of story. The fact that they're pushing deadlines tells me they're working through the process. They're planning. They're building frameworks. That's what approval looks like before it happens. And while everyone was getting dramatic about that delay, what slipped through almost unnoticed was an actual spot XRP ETF hitting the market. That's right, the Rex Osprey Spot XRP ETF launched September 12, 2025. It went live after the SEC completed its 75-day review period without objection. Let that sink in. The US SEC, the same body that spent years fighting Ripple, let a spot XRP ETF go live. That's a milestone. That's history. Now I know people immediately jumped in with confusion. Is this really a spot ETF? Some AI tools said no, others said yes. Analysts split hairs about the structure. Here's the truth. It's not a pure 100% spot ETF in the cleanest sense, but it is fundamentally spot-based. It holds actual XRP directly, at least 80% of the assets, with the rest balanced through futures, swaps, cash equivalents, treasuries, all the usual things these funds use to stay compliant. So yeah, maybe it's not a perfect spot ETF, but it's close enough. It's a product that gives retail and institutional investors regulated exposure to XRP through traditional brokerage accounts, without needing a wallet, without dealing with crypto exchanges. And that's the breakthrough. That's what matters. Sure, Rex Osprey is a small fund. They've got maybe $200 million in AUM. They're not BlackRock, they're not Fidelity. I'm not expecting billions to flood in overnight because of this one launch. But don't miss the forest for the trees. This is a wedge in the door. The first step. It shows that the SEC is willing to allow XRP ETFs, and once one goes live, it becomes much easier for bigger names to follow. And that's where the tsunami starts. October is shaping up to be one of the most pivotal months for XRP ever. We've got multiple ETF deadlines, Fed rate cuts, institutional announcements, and all of it leading straight into Ripple Swell in November, the company's flagship event that always drops major news. You don't think Ripple timed this on purpose? Of course they did. They know the market is heating up, and they know how to capitalize on momentum. October and November could be a perfect storm for XRP holders. And then you've got the DTCC angle. People forget how big that is. Back in October 2023, the BlackRock Bitcoin ETF ticker popped up on the DTCC website. Everyone said it was meaningless. 3 months later, January 2024, that ETF was live, and the floodgates opened for institutional Bitcoin buying. Fast forward to now, September 2025, and guess what we're seeing? XRP ETFs appearing on the DTCC list. Same playbook, same timeline. Do you think that's coincidence? No chance. This is how the system works. The plumbing gets laid, the infrastructure gets tested, then the approvals come. If history repeats, XRP ETFs could be trading live before the end of this year. And once Wall Street has a green light, the dynamic changes forever. Because retail buying XRP on Uphold or Coinbase or some DEX is one thing. But institutions allocating through ETFs, that's sticky capital. That's pension funds, insurance companies, hedge funds building positions and holding them. That's constant inflows, buying the dip every single time the price pulls back, creating a structural bid under the asset. Look at Bitcoin post-IBIT. Dips were shallow. No more brutal minus 50% drawdowns. Why? Because institutions don't panic sell. They accumulate. And the same thing can happen to XRP once ETFs are in full swing. Now combine that with Treasury adoption. We already have 10 publicly announced companies holding XRP in their treasuries, representing over $1 billion collectively. That's not retail speculation, that's balance sheet allocation. That's companies betting their future stability on XRP being part of the financial system. Add ETFs on top of that, and suddenly the available liquid supply of XRP starts shrinking. You get a supply squeeze. More demand, less supply, price goes up. It's basic economics. And the thing is, this all feels like it's happening at once. ETFs getting delayed, approved, listed on DTCC. Treasury adoption growing. Ripple swell around the corner. The Fed cutting rates, adding fuel to the risk asset rally. The SEC no longer breathing down Ripple's neck. All the puzzle pieces are snapping together. And the endgame is obvious. Institutional capital flooding into XRP. This is why I laugh when people dismiss XRP as a banker coin or a stagnant project. They're not paying attention. They're stuck in old narratives while the market structure around XRP is transforming right under their noses. It's not just retail speculation anymore. It's Wall Street. It's global banks. It's governments. It's the entire financial plumbing of the 21st century being rewired. And XRP is right there, not on the sidelines, but in the top 100 global assets by market cap, staring down Citigroup, climbing the ranks. And remember, all it takes is one major approval, one big domino to fall, and the rest will follow. That's how it worked for Bitcoin ETFs. That's how it will work for XRP ETFs. Once the SEC stamps yes on one of the big ones, Franklin Templeton, Fidelity, whoever, the floodgates open. Every fund manager who's been sitting on the sidelines suddenly has a green light. And when that happens, you better believe XRP won't be sitting at number 99 on that list anymore. People still underestimate just how massive this ETF situation really is. They look at the headlines, SEC delays this, SEC pushes back that, and they think it's the same old game, the same old stalling tactics we've seen for years. But I've been watching this playbook for a long time now, and let me tell you, delays don't mean denial. Delays mean preparation. Delays mean the machinery is moving behind the scenes. And if you paid attention to Bitcoin, you already know exactly what's happening right now with XRP. Remember back in 2023, when everyone mocked the idea of a spot Bitcoin ETF. For a decade, the SEC rejected them. They said the market was too manipulated, too immature, too risky for investors. They shot down application after application. And then October 2023 came around, and suddenly, out of nowhere, the BlackRock ticker appears on the DTCC website. That wasn't a glitch. That wasn't an accident. That was the first breadcrumb. And 3 months later, January 2024, boom, the floodgates opened. Spot Bitcoin ETFs approved. Billions of dollars started flowing in. Institutions that had been waiting on the sidelines for years suddenly had their regulated entry point. That changed Bitcoin forever. Fast forward to 2025, and here we are watching the exact same movie, just with a different asset. This time it's XRP. Franklin Templeton, Grayscale, Invesco all filing. The SEC dragging their feet, setting new deadlines, trying to look cautious. But what's really happening? The DTCC has already started listing XRP ETFs. That's not speculation, that's fact. You don't get on the DTCC list for fun. You don't get there because someone's playing games. You get there because market participants are preparing for trading. You get there because approvals are on the horizon. And anyone who remembers October 2023 knows what comes next. This is why I say over and over again, you cannot afford to ignore the ETF narrative. Once Wall Street has the green light to offer XRP ETFs, everything changes. This isn't just about making it easier for retail to buy without opening a crypto wallet. This is about unleashing institutional capital, pension funds, insurance companies, sovereign wealth funds. These entities don't touch Uphold or Bitstamp. They don't mess with cold wallets or private keys. They need regulated, custodied, exchange-traded products. That's what ETFs are. That's the bridge between the crypto-native world and the trillions of dollars locked up in traditional finance. Now, some people look at the Rex Osprey XRP ETF that launched in September and shrug it off. Oh, it's small. It's only a couple hundred million AUM. It's not BlackRock. And yeah, on the surface, that's true. Rex Osprey isn't a trillion-dollar asset manager. They're not going to single-handedly change the game. But that's missing the point entirely. The point is that the SEC allowed it. The point is that for the first time in history, an XRP ETF is trading live on US soil. That's precedent. That's a crack in the wall. Because once one fund goes live, it's almost impossible to justify denying the others. And you better believe the heavyweights are watching. Now, let's put some numbers on this because people always ask, okay, but how much demand could ETFs really bring? Look at Bitcoin. In less than a year of trading, spot Bitcoin ETFs brought in over $20 billion in net inflows. That's not counting the synthetic exposure institutions already had. That's fresh, regulated money buying actual Bitcoin, month after month, quarter after quarter. Now apply that model to XRP. XRP's current market cap is hovering around $180 billion. If ETFs brought in even $10 billion of new inflows in the first year, you're looking at a structural 5 to 10% increase in demand relative to supply. And because XRP's supply is more concentrated and more tightly held than Bitcoin's, the impact of those flows could be even more dramatic. Less float, more pressure, higher prices. And here's something most people don't realize. ETFs don't just create demand, they also create consistency. That's the big difference. Retail buying is lumpy. One week everyone's bullish, the next week they're selling for rent money. ETFs smooth that out. They create steady, recurring inflows because institutions allocate according to strategy, not emotion. They rebalance portfolios. They ladder in buys over time. They don't FOMO, they plan. And when you have steady buying pressure underneath the market, volatility dampens, price floors rise, and the entire narrative around the asset changes. Suddenly, it's not just a risky speculative coin, it's an institutional-grade investment product. That's the perception shift ETFs create. And don't forget the signaling effect. When Bitcoin got its ETFs, it wasn't just about the inflows. It was about legitimacy. Suddenly, every news outlet, every analyst, every talking head on CNBC had to admit Bitcoin wasn't going away. The Ponzi scheme narrative collapsed. It became part of mainstream portfolios. The same thing will happen with XRP. The second Fidelity or BlackRock launches an ETF, you'll see headlines in Bloomberg and the Wall Street Journal about the institutionalization of cross-border settlement assets. You'll see analysts drawing comparisons to SWIFT, to treasury markets, to stablecoin settlements. And all of that noise drives adoption, which drives price, which drives more adoption. It's a feedback loop. This is why October and November are so critical. We're not just waiting on one deadline. We're waiting on a cluster of them. Franklin Templeton's ETF decision is November 14th. Other applications are lined up around the same time. Ripple Swell kicks off right after that, and you know Ripple loves to time announcements with market catalysts. If even one approval hits in that window, you could see XRP's entire trajectory change overnight. So when people laugh and say, "Oh, ETFs don't matter, it's just paper pushing," I shake my head. They said the same thing about Bitcoin. They said ETFs wouldn't change anything. And now, Bitcoin's entire market structure is defined by ETF flows. Daily trading revolves around ETF demand. Price floors are dictated by ETF accumulation. That's where XRP is heading. And when that wave hits, those same skeptics will be scrambling to buy at 3x, 5x, 10x the current price because they couldn't see what was right in front of them. This is the ETF moment. It's not about if, it's about when. And when it comes, XRP graduates from being a controversial crypto project to being a core pillar of the new financial system. That's the transition we're watching in real time. And it's why anyone ignoring ETFs right now is going to regret it in a very big way. At the end of the day, everything we're seeing right now is lining up like a perfect storm for XRP. You've got ETFs opening the floodgates for institutional capital. And you've got an entire industry shifting from speculative hype into real-world adoption. That's not theory anymore, that's reality. And the crazy part? We're still early. People keep saying, "Oh, we've missed the boat." No, the boat hasn't even left the dock yet. An ETF launch doesn't mean the market is priced in. It means the game is just beginning. Institutions don't ape in on day one. They scale in, they build positions, they accumulate through every dip. That steady, sticky capital reshapes the market structure over time. Just like we saw with Bitcoin after BlackRock's ETF, the floor rises, the volatility dampens, and the narrative shifts from speculative crypto to legitimate asset class. Now imagine that happening with XRP, an asset that isn't just a store of value but actually solves trillion-dollar problems. Every bank that plugs in, every corridor that lights up, every treasury that holds XRP, every institution that buys through an ETF, that's the story of transformation. From retail-driven cycles to structural, long-term adoption. From hype-driven rallies to utility-driven demand. And look, it's not going to be a straight line. There will be corrections, pullbacks, scary headlines, all the usual noise. That's how markets work. But when you zoom out, when you step back and look at the macro trend, the writing is on the wall. Finance is going digital. Money is going borderless. Value transfer is being re-engineered. And XRP is sitting right at the intersection of all of that. So while everyone else is getting lost in the short-term charts, I'd rather be focused on the big picture. Because the big picture is clear. Adoption is accelerating, institutions are lining up, the infrastructure is being laid, and the narrative is shifting in XRP's favor. This is the part of the cycle where patience pays off, where conviction gets rewarded, and where the people who truly understand the long-term vision position themselves before the rest of the world catches on. And hey, before you head out, if you've been vibing with this breakdown and you want to stay ahead of the curve, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. I'm dropping deep dives like this every single week, cutting through the noise and giving you the insights you actually need to understand where this market is headed. No hype, no fluff, just straight talk about crypto, adoption, and the future of finance. Also, smash that like button if you got value from this video. It helps push this content out to more people who need to hear it, and it keeps this community growing. Drop your thoughts in the comments too. What do you think about an XRP ETF? Do you see institutions actually piling in? Or do you think we've still got a ways to go before that happens? I love reading your takes, and I always try to jump in the comments and reply. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next upload. Because trust me, you're going to want to catch what's coming.